Welcome back to Economics YouTube channel. Alright, my name is Godwin. So what can you say on the board? Poverty and development. Okay, poverty and development. I don't think poverty should be something that is difficult for anybody to define because you have a lot of people in the world experiencing poverty in one form or the other. Although the kind of poverty that we concentrate on is the monetary poverty. I am talking about monetary deprivation. We will talk about that in our next. I talk about it better in our next class. Okay, where we shall be looking at measures of the different measures of poverty as well as poverty in Nigeria. Anyway, just looking at poverty on its own. So what is poverty? So poverty is the lack of economic resources to afford the basic things of life. So that's just it. A lack of economic resources or material possessions to afford the basic things of life. So things like food, as an individual, if you are not able to afford food, you can't get shelter, clothing, you don't have access to. Well, those are the three things normally that have been classified as the basic needs of life. But now, additionally, we have education and healthcare. So these are also things that are very, very essential to people, right? So if you don't have enough resources to get these things, then that means you are poor. All right. And poverty is something that, like I said, something that a lot of people experience. In 2015, World Bank data said that about 700 million people were experiencing extreme poverty. Now that's even worse, right? And by 2019, the figure had reduced to 648 million people, right, in the world, okay, who live under extreme poverty. Now, how does the World Bank know? Okay, how does it get these numbers? So, in 2015, so there's something called International Poverty Line. It's just talking about the basic or the minimum amounts that an individual must live on, okay, on a particular day. So if you go below that minimum amount, so that is extremely poor. Okay, and it's based on purchasing power parity. I think I should explain that. So purchasing power parity is, a measure of the economic productivity and the standard of living of people in different countries based on their relative cost of living. Now that might be might sound somehow to you, it's just grammar. Okay, so let's set an example. Now you have people moving out of Nigeria in droves, okay, and seeking greener pastures. So let's say there is Mr. A, right? So when Mr. A was in Nigeria, he was earning 200,000 naira a month. Okay, now he has moved to America and he got a job, right? And he's earning $1,000 a month. Okay, now if you look at the um, unofficial exchange rate in Nigeria, about 1 naira to 700 naira to $1. Okay, so the Mr. A that is in America that is earning $1,000 now is basically earning about 700,000 naira. If you look at it in terms of the unofficial, like the black market exchange rate. So by the time you hear it, maybe you're a friend of Mr. A and you hear that, oh, this is what Mr. A is making, and you might be like, wow, I should find a way to jackpot as well, to find a way to get out of the country because just look at his income. He's now earning 700,000 naira, whereas he was earning 200,000 naira in Nigeria before. But what you have to take note of is that the analysis is incomplete, and in fact, it might be inaccurate. So, purchasing power parity is saying that okay, what can a naira buy in Nigeria? Okay, and what can a naira buy in America? Now, this guy is earning 700,000 naira, okay, in America, right, based on the exchange rate, and then compared to when he was earning 200. So, now in Nigeria, if you are earning 200,000 naira a month, multiply by 12 months, so that's like 2.4 million naira a year, right? Okay, you would, if you are looking for maybe, let's talk about housing for example, you can, in many parts of Nigeria, okay, if you have like 400,000, you should be able to get a two-bedroom apartment, okay, where you're going to live comfortably. In fact, it's going to have water, it's going to have lights, electricity, and so on like that, like those things that you could, enjoy yourself with. But now, if you take 400,000 naira away from 2.4 million. So you're left with 2 million there. So you spend on school fees. How much is school fees? Okay, maybe you send your children, maybe you have two children, send them to schools that are paying maybe about 120,000 naira per um per term. Okay, it's 120,000 naira not too much. Okay, okay, let's say 120,000 naira per term. So 120,000 naira multiplied by so you have three terms in a year. Yes, that's a session, three times in a year. So like 120,000 times three, that's 360. And 360 multiplied by two, two children now. So yeah, I spend like 720,000. So when you remove that from the remaining 2 million, you still have like about 1.2 million. You spend on food and whatever like that. So with 2.4 million, you might still be able to live comfortably in Nigeria. Probably still have maybe an annual savings of half a million, 500,000 naira. Okay, but in America, your friend, Mr. A, that is earning $1,000, okay, that you think is far better than you, might not be able to pay his rent on a monthly basis. Okay, I'm not even talking about annual basis now. Go and check the average, monthly rents, okay, of apartments in America. Talking about one bedroom, two-bedroom apartment. So it's between $1,000 to about maybe 1,300, $1,400. So that friend that is making $1,000 cannot even pay his house rent, and then taxes are still going to be deducted from the income that he's making. So look at it. So if you are just looking at exchange rates, you are making an inaccurate submission, okay, of the standard of living of you and Mr. A. All right. But if you consider the purchasing power parity, that is, what is your cost of living? So that's just it. What's the cost of living in Nigeria, and what's the cost of living in America? All right. So that's just what purchasing power parity is helping you to do. It's helping you to compare standard of living of people in different countries based on their relative cost of living, right? So now international poverty line is saying that after making allowances for the different cost of living of people in various countries, okay, in 2015, okay, the international poverty line was 1.9 dollars. So if there was an individual that was living below $1.9 a day, that individual is extremely poor. Okay, that was how they arrived at the 700 million people in 2015. But in 2019, the international poverty line was revised upwards. So it was no longer $1.9, okay, based on 2017 purchasing power parity data. Okay, because there is data for it as well. Based on that data, it was realized that the cost of living on average of people in different countries had increased. So, looking at extreme poverty from the aspect of 1.9 dollars per less than living less than $1.9 per day was no longer a reflection of what was happening in the economy. So it was revised upwards to $2.15 per day. I think that should be correct. $2.15 per day. So if you are living below in 2019, so if an individual is living below $2.15 per day, that individual qualifies as an extremely poor person. So and that was how we were able to arrive at 648 million people in 2019. So that's to tell you that between 2015 and 2019, the number of people who were in extreme poverty in the world reduced. Okay. Now this is 2023. I don't think there is a latest data. The one that I think we can keep working with is the 2.15 dollars international poverty line. So now that's comparing people who are extremely poor based on international, like based on being able to afford things, basic needs of life on an international basis. So as for every country, there is another um, measure which is the national poverty line. So national poverty line is the one that is now looking at your own country. Okay, so what is the amount that people must not go below to qualify as extremely poor based on each country. All right, based on each country. So, and when a country is making policies, right, to correct poverty in its, to correct the poverty rate, okay, of its own citizens, what is more important is not the international poverty line, because you are not looking at your life, you know, in comparison with the life of someone living in the US or Canada or UK. You are actually looking at yourself, you are living in Nigeria. Okay, so how much qualifies, how much, okay, should you have, or how much things should you be able to consume, all right, for you to qualify as a rich person or as a poor person right in this country based on the country's, average cost of living, right? So Nigeria's poverty line in 2019 was, um, Nigeria's national poverty line in 2019 was $1. So if you lived below $1 in 2019 in Nigeria, you qualify as an extremely poor person. Okay, that's based on the national level. Okay, so that's that about that. Now, next, what are the causes of poverty? Lack of education. So that's lack of access to quality education, right? And even if let's just do it like that, quality education. So, are you able to go to school at all? I said it in one of our previous classes that education is a leveler, right? It puts you on a relatively, equal playing ground, with other people. So it makes you privileged in one way or the other. So if you get quality education, there's a tendency that you would be your lot in life is going to be much better, much improved than if you don't have education, right? If you don't have access to quality education. So if there is lack of education, you can't go to school at all, or maybe you only go, you only attend, you stopped at primary six, you couldn't go to college, you couldn't go to the university, then you might end up being poor. It doesn't happen like that all the time, but I'm just saying there's a higher likelihood that you might end up being poor. Now, number two, long period of unemployment slash underemployment. So if there is an individual who hasn't been employed for a very long period of time, okay, so if you are not employed and coupled with the fact that you're not getting welfare benefits, you're not getting unemployment benefit and stuff like that. Even unemployment benefits are not meant to make you rich. They are just meant to make you afford the basic things of life. So now let's just say you are not getting the unemployment benefits because you are living in a country like Nigeria. I don't think there's something like unemployment benefits in this country as at this particular period of time. If there is, I don't know. I don't know about it. So with that kind of thing happening, you're out of job for a very long period of time, and then you're not getting employment benefits. So there is a likelihood that you're going to be poor. What money are you going to be spending when you are not earning income, right? Then underemployment is just an individual that is working below his capacity. All right. So if you have a um, a university degree and the only job you could get is to be the driver of Dangote cement factory, you are more qualified than that. You understand? So in that case, you are underemployed. You are working below what your worth is, below your expertise, below your skill set. All right. Now, number three, economic inequality. So where there is economic inequality, where some people are the ones who get access to the resources in the country and some other people are not getting it. So what do you expect to happen to those other people that are not getting the resources? So they will likely be poor, right? So you have few rich people in a country, and then the remaining people who could not have access to things, maybe wealth of the country, resources of the country, and other things like that. There's a likelihood that they will end up being poor. Now you also have discrimination. Now discrimination could be gender-wise, it could be racial, okay, it could be ethnic, for example. Okay, in Nigeria now, we are in an election period, and when you listen to some people's debates, they are telling their fellow Nigerians, right, that their fellow Nigerians came into Lagos, and like there's a discrimination against a particular ethnic group in Lagos, as if Lagos does not belong to all Nigerians. You understand? So things like that. No, if you have now Lagos is the commercial hub of Nigeria, so if you have things like ethnic hatred. For example, you don't want a particular tribe to come to make use of the collective resources that Lagos State has for all of its citizens. Then that means you are denying them opportunity to thrive in business, and generate wealth for themselves. So that's if Lagos happen to be like if Nigeria happen to be a two-state country now, okay, and where these people are coming from, the state these people are coming from, and Lagos, so just two states. And then Lagos is the state where you can make things happen and make life better for yourself. But some people are not allowed to come into Lagos because they think that you don't belong here. You understand? So there is a chance that you might also end up being poor. Now you have gender discrimination. So here where it might be cultural, okay, in terms of orientation, yeah, it might be cultural. Like you feel you have people feeling that it's not worth it to send girls to school. Right? So why should you send a girl to school when at the end of the day she's only going to get married and she'll be relegated to the kitchen and the other room? Alright. So I send a girl to school, leave the girl at home, and let her just go to school, end in primary six, and marry her off to one wealthy allergy or something like that. So when you have things happen like that, so the girls, the girls would likely end up, being poor or not having adequate resources to take care of themselves, because you are not allowing them to be educated enough, to be skilled enough, to improve their own lot in life on an, looking at it on an individual basis. So it could be racial, so where you have this a lot of racism going on in some countries. So where a particular group of people are thinking that they are better than another group of people because of color, right? So because you are black, you're not supposed to be here. Because you are this, because you are that. So if it happens that white supremacy is what everybody believes in, for example, and power resources happens to be under the um, control of white people. So, and with that with that racial orientation that blacks don't deserve these things, they are not supposed to be here. So exclude the blacks. So the blacks that you're excluding now, the only jobs that they can take, maybe they can be clerks, they can be secretaries, or they can be peasant farmers. That's the only thing they can do, no matter no matter how skilled they might be, maybe natural, no matter their inborn talents or whatever. So that those are the only jobs that they can take. Menial jobs, cleaners, people attending to the aged, taking care of babysitting children. So they can't take jobs in the tech, in finance industry. They can't take job in technology industry. They can't take job in hospitality. They can't take job in aviation industry. So they are going to be poor basically because of that kind of mindset as excluding people based on race. All right, and people can be poor as well based on laziness. Yeah, it should be mentioned. Some people are lazy. So if you are lazy, right, there's a tendency that you might be poor. You are likely going to be poor. Okay? There are lazy people that may not end up being poor. So it's important for you to understand that. But if you are lazy, you don't want to go to work, you don't want to do any work. So there's a likelihood that you might end up, poor. Life is not black and white, it has gray area. So I can't just say if you are lazy, you'll be poor. I can't say that. Okay? Some people are lazy, but then fortune will smile on them. Some people just happen in life and their estate is going to be improved. Alright, so life is just somehow. Now you have political instability. So a country that is, you know, ravaged by insecurity, there is no peace, they can bomb you anytime, they can shoot anybody anytime. Okay. Countries like that, the economy is not going to grow. You need peace, for example. You need peace for an economy to grow. Alright, there must be security of lives and properties. So in an area where you don't have peace, where lives and properties are not secured, you won't have an economy. Right? You won't likely have an economy. And if you don't have an economy, buying and selling is not taking place, production of goods and services is not taking place. So what's going to happen? People are likely going to be poor. There's a very high chance that people will be poor. So as an example of countries suffering from political instability, Somalia, um, and Afghanistan. And World Bank's, according to World Bank data, 2020, um, one of their data sets. So Somalia and Afghanistan have poverty rates that is around 70%. What that is telling you is that if you bring 10 people together in these countries, there is 7 out of those 10 people are extremely poor. So in fact, People in Afghanistan are living on humanitarian aid. So it's not even as if they are living on maybe one income, it's they are living on the benevolence of people from other countries. Just take this and eat. Take this and humanitarian aid. So it's serious. Alright, it's serious. When you have political instability, there won't be any economy and people are likely going to be poor. Alright, so what are the effects of poverty? So number one, poor health. When you don't have enough money to feed yourself, that's going to result poor health, malnutrition, stuff like that. Number two, lower life expectancy. How would you even live long when you can't afford the things that are supposed to make you live long? Now you have crime and violence. Of course, when people are very poor, they might, you know, end up doing whatever it takes, you understand, to survive, which also includes crime and inciting violence. Okay. Now you also have reduced opportunities. So when you are poor, you can't afford education, you can't afford, health, and all of these things are going to be reducing your chances, in the future, chances of becoming a better person or maybe a wealthy person. Okay. Now, you also have a lack of power and voice. In Yoruba tribe or ethnic group in Nigeria, they say there's a saying that the rich man is speaking, the poor man said he has an idea. I don't know if you get that. The rich man is talking, the poor man is saying that he has an idea. So, what is the idea of the poor man going to do? In the garden of the rich, you understand? So you would likely not have a voice if people know you that you are a very poor person. They are likely not going to listen to whatever it is you want to say. You understand? So that's what that point is saying. Then next, you have low self-esteem. All right, and I think this is common to a lot of people. At some point, I suffered from something like this too during my undergraduate days. So when you don't have enough, you barely have money, or you rarely have money. If you have money today, you don't even know when the next one is coming. So planning is even difficult. So when you get to a gathering where people don't even understand what poverty is, they don't even know what you are going through, and if you don't have a thick skin, things like that might just get into you and just discover that you're drowning. Okay, in a gathering, a room full of people, you are alone emotionally, and it can just affect your self-esteem. You might begin to think that nothing's gonna be good in your life again. But I'm just telling you, I'm not preaching to you right now, I'm not motivating you, but there's hope, right? There's hope. So there's hope. You're not gonna die. You won't die. So you're not the first person to be poor. You understand? Are you be the last person to be poor? Poor people are making it. Okay. Um. Okay. So that's that. Now we have types of poverty. Absolute poverty. Absolute poverty is just like this basic definition of poverty. You being unable to afford the basic, an individual being unable to afford basic things of life. So when something like that happens, the person is absolutely poor. The person is suffering from absolute poverty. Now there's relative poverty. Now for relative poverty, so this is somebody being poor in terms of their environment. So it's not as if it's not as if you can't afford the basic things of life. You can, you understand. But in terms of your environment, so you are poor in relation to other people in your environment. Okay, now let's give an example. An individual that was living in, let's say, Yanapaja, okay, in Lagos State. Now the person was earning, let me say, 300,000. So in a year, that's 3.6 million naira, just like the example I gave initially. So with 3.6 million naira, the person can afford accommodation in a year, maybe 400,000 naira apartment, 2 bedroom, or maybe whatever. Then the person can pay school fees of his two children, feed the family comfortably, and still have some savings. Now something happens, and this person got a job in places like Ikoyi, and then begins to earn like maybe a million naira. So a million naira multiplied by 12 is 12 million naira, right? So which is cool. But the issue is that the children now, okay, in Ikoyi, for example, now the schools that you have around Ikoyi, they are big men schools, schools that children of the governors are the ones that are attending. So the school fee per term may be around half a million. So you might probably were paying just 70 something thousand when you were in your apartment. But now in this place you have to pay. That's just on average, all the schools around that area, so that's the that's the lowest that you can get. So 500,000 naira per term. So for a child now, you be paying 1.5 million naira per session because there are three terms. And you have two children. So that's how much, 3 million naira. Just the education. That just their school fees. They've not spoken about books and whatever they have to buy. And sometimes they may have to travel, maybe out of the country, you have to pay for those things too. Then look at transport. Okay, so maybe when you were living in Abuja, just you can hail a Danfo, a commercial bus, or a BLT. Okay, but now you have to be taking Uber up and down in Ikoyi and its environs. So that might end up costing you more. Okay, then you also have the house that you are living in. So before you were living in a 400,000 naira apartment, in Ikoyi you are living in a 2 million naira apartment. So by the time you do all of those things, you might discover that you are kind of poorer than you might have more savings when you're living in Yanopaja than now that you are living in Ikoyi. Okay, even though your income had increased in Ikoyi. Right, so maybe you were able to save maybe 1 million naira when you're living in Yanopaja, but now you barely have savings. Everything that you have. In fact, now you might even be taking loans, okay, to support your lifestyle. So you have clubs that you have to go now, and they are posh clubs, right? Even the food, a bottle of water, I was 100 naira, 150 naira per jar. Maybe you're paying 500 naira for it now. The restaurants that you have in Ikoyi. So like, not that you can't afford the basic things of life, but now because of that environment that you found yourself, so you are poor. So you are poor. There are other people that are probably making maybe 50 million naira in a year, like yeah, 50 million naira in a year, or maybe wealthy businessmen that are billionaires or millionaires in the hundreds. Okay, maybe they be making like 100 million naira a year, 200 million naira a year, and you are there and you're making just 12 million naira a year. So they might just be spending money anyhow, and you can't afford to spend money that way. So in relation to those people, they are poor. That's what relative poverty is talking about, right? Not that you can't afford the basic needs of life. In relation to those people, they are poor. All right. The next one is rural poverty. So rural poverty is the poverty that is when you're living in a rural area, you're likely going to have food. Because everybody's farming, right? And that's that. But then you're likely not going to have money. Okay, so that's one thing about rural areas. You have food, if you're looking fresh, you're likely not going to have money. Okay, or have a lot of money. So, rural poverty is the poverty that people experience because they don't have enough to access, um, things like education, things like quality education, quality health, services, and so on and so forth. You understand? So the poverty that you kind of experience because you are in a rural area. All right. Now, what about urban poverty? Urban poverty is, the poverty that people, experience. Okay, because of the high living conditions um, in the urban area. Okay, now for example, a friend of mine got a job at EY, okay, a big company like that, one of the top four or whatever it is called, okay, in Nigeria, okay, a company that offers professional services. Now, as at that was maybe in January, okay. Now, she has to get an accommodation, she has to get an apartment, and the last time we spoke with her about she had about 800,000 naira, and still she couldn't get any she couldn't get a comfortable apartment. Like she couldn't even get anywhere. Like they were just everywhere she went to, like 800K is small. She has to find more money, to add to it to become maybe around a million plus for her to get just a place that is at least okay for her. So that's urban poverty, the high cost of living. Now the funny thing is, in other areas there might be better apartments than the ones that are being presented to her in the place where she is looking for accommodation. But the cost of living, that's just the way it is, over there. So that's an example of urban poverty. They are just poor because of the high cost of living that is existing in the urban area. Now, there's one interesting which is intergenerational poverty. Now, this kind of poverty is the one that is handed down by ancestors, and the parents of children onto the children, and the children hand these things over onto their own children, their grandchildren, or something like that. So, and I think in churches, right, in fellowship houses, you have prayers going against this kind of poverty. You want to just break the chain, all right? You don't want to continue like that, and there are reasons for this. Now, one thing is there are some families that give birth to a lot of children with the hope. The hope is not as if they have the resources to take care of these children, but they are hoping that's their resource. Their resource is hope. With the hope that these children are going to, one of them at least, is going to make it in life. So let's say as they were growing, one of them was showing, you know, um, a kind of innate ability or a kind of flair for education. Okay, so what the parents do, they can now put resources together, decide not to train the other children, then train this particular one that has flair for education, you know, and they have an expectation. The expectation is after we've trained you and you've made it, you're now going to come back and train your siblings. Now, that can be a source of intergenerational poverty. Now, why? Okay, they finish training you. There's already pressure on your neck, okay, because you have to take care of your own siblings. You have your own family to also take care of. Now that means the immediate family. But now you have to take care of your siblings and your parents. Okay, now how much are you going to be making on a monthly basis that will be enough to take care of yourself and your siblings? So let's say okay, you got a job of 300,000, which is good. Okay, for a young man or a young woman. But then you have like five siblings, and then you have your parents. Then by the time you share the money, how much is left for you? You understand? So you'll be walking like an elephant. You won't the it's not going to be showing. You understand? So everybody keeps managing in spite of the fact that you are earning a lot, everybody keeps managing as if everybody is still poor. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Right. So that can be a source of intergenerational poverty. You are making money, but it is not showing. You understand? Now there are also other factors that might lead to intergenerational poverty, and they're already here. Okay, when parents don't have access to education, when parents are when there is a kind of discrimination and exclusion, okay, you live in an environment where you can't get good jobs, so you can only get menial jobs, okay, because of maybe your race. Now, the children that you are giving birth to, they too can't get, jobs better than the ones you got. So just everybody's managing menial jobs like that. Before you know, that's how poverty will be passed on, passed on, passed on, and passed on like that. So that's just it, but I just hope. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say at this point. Right, so there's an assignment. If you have any question, please put them in the comment section or ask me the questions on WhatsApp. Okay, so there's an assignment. You have to write a short note on feminization of poverty. Alright, feminization of poverty. Should I give you a word count? I'm not giving you any word count. Just write a short note on feminization of poverty. So thank you. We'll meet in the next class. See you then. Bye.